Hi, Matt.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you so much. Kevin Murphy and Matt Murphy, then and now. Welcome to the deep end.
Then and now, yeah.
Then and now. Thank you so much.
I wish I wasn't the then, but still.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Here and now.
I'm just looking here, Kevin.
Tell me when we started, and then
yeah. Oh, we're straight into it.
Oh.
We recorded and all. So, Jacqueline, you do the kickoff. You do the.
Welcome to the deep end. We have Kevin Murphy and Matt Murphy, father and son, two legends, and the theme for this one is then and now.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I'm just having a look here at the records, and you were only the second swimmer, Kevin, to succeed on the North Channel. Like, that is pretty amazing, and it shows how young the North Channel is.
I'm not sure whether you've heard the story of how I came to do the North Channel. This is the then, before Matthew gets into the now. I had swum the English Channel two-way, and there was a fair bit of publicity. And then I got back home, and I suddenly got a phone call from a guy in Northern Ireland from the ILDSA saying, "Do we have a swim which we would like you to try? We call it the killer swim." And that's because the only person who's done it was Tom Blower, and he dropped dead a little while later, and it was blamed on him constant immersion in cold water. And then one of the last people to try it was Jason Zaganos, and he died in it after having open heart surgery on the boat. And they said, "We have this killer swim. Would you like to try it?" I couldn't resist, really. So I went over there, and I met my pilot, who was Captain William Long. And the first thing he said to me was, "Yes, this is the penknife that we used on Jason Zaganos."
He wasn't selling it, was he?
Really?
He wasn't selling it.
But I still couldn't resist the challenge. And that's how I came to, and at that stage, a lot of people had tried after Tom Blower. All the people that were in the Butlin Daily Mail English Channel races had tried, and they'd all hadn't succeeded. And it was one of my best swims.
Yeah, 11 hours, 21 minutes.
Yes.
What age were you then?
Pardon?
How old were you then?
I was, that was in 1970, I was 21.
Before you would be in top shape, top form, but maybe at the beginning of your career, would that be your...
Yes, at that stage, I did a English Channel relay when I was 16. I did the English Channel solo when I was 19, two-way when I was 21, and then, as I say, straight into the North Channel.
What was your feeling like back then? Because, yeah, I'm sure there was a world of a difference.
Considerably. Oddly enough, I was looking up something earlier on today about my, it wasn't the North Channel, it was the English Channel that I was looking up. And my feeding was cheese sandwiches, coffee, glucose drink, rice pudding. There was no high carbohydrate drinks, foods or anything. So you complan was another one. All the things you shouldn't have, but that was all there was.
Yeah, yeah.
Pork pies
Mum?
and a pork pie or two.
What?
Pork pie.
Actually, no, I didn't.
No.
No, that was a guy called Mervyn Sharp who he's famously had pies or chicken legs, and they gave it to him, and he dipped it in the sea for salt before. But biscuits was another one, another favourite of mine. And the other thing is that we didn't really stop like we do now for sort of every half an hour or so. It was breakfast, brunch, lunch, afternoon tea, evening meal, and then sort of late night snack. You used to stop every 2 or 3 hours and sort of have a little feast.
What was your reflecting back? Like, what was your thoughts on comparing the English Channel to the North Channel way back then?
Mile for mile, I've always said that the North Channel is the harder.
Okay.
And that's because it's much the same sort of distance, but the jellyfish and the temperature of the water, and it was a lot colder then. When I set off, this was in Fahrenheit. In those days, when I set off, it was 49 Fahrenheit from Orlock Point. Now 49 is just under 10, I think.
Yeah.
And at its warmest, it got to about 56, which I think is about 13.
Yeah.
And so it was an awful lot colder then. It was also a little bit Wild West in those days. In as much as I don't know whether you know about what happened when I landed.
Yes.
Delay.
Tell everyone. We know, but yes, do say.
When I landed, I was about I don't know, about 400 or 500 meters offshore with the pilot boat, and the pilot boat said we can't go any further because there are rocks. And we're coming in just to the north of the Killintringan lighthouse. There were rocks there, and they launched a dinghy which rode in with me, and we threaded our way. Indeed, we threaded our way through rocks. And when you if you see photographs of me coming ashore, I was there were bits of what actually was seaweed all over me where I'd hit the rocks, and the seaweed had sort of got itself attached to me. Got onto shore, congratulations, put a robe on me, and we all piled back into the rowing boat to row back out to the main pilot boat, and the wave came over, and they tried to row, and then one other wave came over. In the end, the rowing boat was sitting on the bottom, and it was actually quite rough. There was a big rollers coming into that beach, and the boat sank. So we all scrambled back on shore, and there was no way of getting us all off that beach except by climbing the cliff, which is what we did. So somebody was in front of me pulling me, and somebody was behind me pushing me, and those cliffs are actually quite high.
Yeah.
And we actually climbed those cliffs. And at the top of the cliffs was a car that had driven along from Port Patrick to shine its lights out to sea to help guide us in. And I got into that car, and he took me along to the Killintringan lighthouse. And I banged on the door of the lighthouse and said, "Please, can I come in for a bath?" And the lighthouse keeper was a bit surprised, but said yes. So that's what I did. I had a bath after that first North Channel swim in the Killintringan lighthouse, and I was then taken back along the cliff top to Port Patrick to meet up with my boat, which had gone into the harbour there.
Wonderful. Wonderful history.
It was, as I say, a little bit Wild West, and not the sort of things that happen now.
Yeah.
And Matt, from Complan and your dad's feeding to the more modern age of high five for you and 30-minute feeds. Talk to us about your feeding plan.
40-minute feeds.
40.
40-minute, yeah. So I've actually got a sports science degree and specialized in nutrition. So I kind of have always had a fairly decent idea about what I'd do if I started doing long distance swims. And I settled on, I use high five every 40 minutes, and I actually spike my drink. I just mix it up as a drink, but I spike it with a sachet as well, a gel. And that's pretty much all I've used so far.
And some had caffeine and some didn't.
Yeah, so I tend to mix them up sort of especially towards the end of the swim. So we've got one's caffeinated, one's not.
In terms of feeding, hot or cold?
Cold.
Cold.
But I don't drink hot drinks, so
okay.
It's it would be a really weird thing for me to be drinking a hot drink.
Yeah.
Makes it easier to look after you when
yeah.
on the bus.
And obviously your dad was on crew with you on your boat, so the performance and obviously the different times across the year. So Kevin, 11 hours 21, 14 hours 27, 17 hours 17 minutes on your third success in 1989, and
that
then
was Scotland to Ireland.
That was, yes,
it didn't exactly go to plan.
Okay, and then Matt, 12 hours 35 on the 19th of August 2021. One of the questions I had for both of you, Kevin, your stroke rate on the day, Matt's was anywhere between 40 and 39 and 38, which left it very easy for our observers to count. Our Milo is a great man for asking what the stroke count is, usually 60, 62 strokes a minute. And we're reporting back to Milo and he's always inquiring about what's going on, and he asks, what's the stroke rate? And I said, oh, Matt's stroke rate is 40. I said, did you get that wrong? Is that only one arm? I said, no, Milo, that's the stroke rate. But the power of the stroke was the result in itself of your time. But Kevin, just wondered what your stroke count would have been back then, or has it changed over the years?
Yes, my stroke rate was somewhere between 62 and 64, so totally different. I found, oddly enough, I hadn't got the strength to do what Matt does. I have a huge pull under the water. I also haven't got the wingspan that he that he has. So I sort of relied on a faster stroke rate, and to a certain extent, I think that also helped me from the point of view of keeping sort of not warm, but generating heat.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, very efficient stroke, Matt. Has it stayed the same for you? Has that always been your
so I was a sprint swimmer, so and I was terrible at long distance stuff. So I never even did 1500 meters. Anything more than 200 was long distance, and I didn't do it. But the club I was at, we were trained to have a really nice, relaxed, slow stroke. And obviously all of this only really started in 2020 for me. So when I agreed to do the English channel, and I only had 2 months to prep, I didn't have time to try and work on my speed, and I realized that I was going to be much better off just being efficient. So I got across the English channel, and then I kind of signed up to do the North channel the following year. And then we went back into lockdown, and I couldn't train through the winter. And because I thought, oh, maybe I could use the winter to try and work on my speed and work on. And then obviously we couldn't swim until the end of March. I couldn't get in the pool and actually swim anywhere. I did a little bit in the River Thames, but it was just too cold to do anything serious. And so I'd not done any speed work. So a slow stroke was kind of essential just to get across.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I should tell you the reason Matt got into it was because of COVID, to be honest. Because I was at a barbecue at his house, Because of COVID, I knew that there were big gaps in the pilot's bookings for the English Channel, and that was at the beginning of July. And I said to Matt, "Would you like to swim the Channel?" And he sort of thought about it and said yes. And his first time down in Dover was his 6-hour assessment swim. And 8 weeks after I mentioned it to him, he swam the English Channel. And then the following year, it was much the same scenario. To be honest, there was still gaps. I'm sure you can vouch for this because of COVID, with the overseas swimmers not being there. And I said was it 8 weeks or 6 weeks? I said to you about the North Channel, and then you had about 8 or not very long to prepare.
I think we sort of set it up towards after the English Channel. We sort of bounced it around as an idea, but I was looking for something a bit more challenging.
You came to the right place. In terms of training, Matt, you maybe hadn't got as long of a build up to it. But what training did you sort of cram in the run up to the swim?
To the North Channel, I think I pretty much did about an 8 or 9 week ramp up, which was essentially what at the weekends doing long swims down in Dover, and then in the week I realised, because I'm a little bit older than my dad was when he started off doing all this, I realised that my recovery rate wasn't there, so I needed to spend the week recovering from the big swims at the weekend. So I just did easy, gentle sort of 2 to 3K swims in the week, 2 or 3 of those, and then I'd do a big swim or 2 at the weekend, and then I think I did about 8 or 9 weeks for the North Channel ramp up, and then about a 3-week taper, 4-week taper.
So what would your length or distance be at the weekend per swim?
So it started off with sort of 6 hours, and then it would have gone to 6 and 4s, and finishing off I remember the last 2 training weeks I did 2 7 and 6s back to back. So I did 7-6 weekend, and then a week later did another 7-6, which I didn't actually finish the 6, even though the man up on the screen next to me tried to force me back in for another 45 minutes. I got my nutrition wrong in my training swim, and I was done. But I knew that I felt like I'd done the work.
And that's when you say that, getting things wrong in your training swims is actually very good, for your plan on the big day. Kevin, just going back, what's your recommendation, for other people training and building up to
I have a rule of thumb, and it's the same now as it was in 1970, which was my aspiration from about May onwards is 21 miles a week, or an average of 3 miles a day. I'd say that because we all have busy lives, and there are days when we can't train, or we have only very short limited time to train. Actually, oddly enough, it worked out much the same as what Matt is saying, because I would tend to do a long swim, or even 2 long swims at the weekend. On a daily basis, I would be doing up to 2 miles in a open air pool. Latterly, in sort of not back in 1970, but latterly, I also included a lot of squad training in an indoor pool.
Okay. Tolerance to cold water, did you either of you sort of focus on that, sort of getting what's the word I'm using, acclimatization to cooler water? Did you think about that, or because you were doing a lot of open water stuff anyway, it just came natural?
Do you want to go first, Nat? Or
yeah, I mean, for the North Channel, obviously I did the English Channel the year before, and I've been swimming outdoors since I was 18, because obviously I had a bit of an influence. And I remember my first swim, it was in 16 degrees, and I thought I was going to die. I did a mile, but obviously with the English Channel the year before, I'd done a little bit, but then not being able to swim train through the winter, I felt like the only thing I could do was possibly try and do some cold acclimatization. So I got myself a tub and I sat in the garden in sort of 2-3 degree water, sort of, and depending on the temperature, I'd do sort of anywhere between 3 to 4 minutes up to 20-30 minutes sitting in a tub in the garden, just getting used to being in the cold. And I actually think that worked quite well for me from almost from a mental perspective more than the physical.
Yeah. And I suppose that's acclimatization. It's not only for the body, it's to get the confidence that you can actually deal with that type of temperature and get your mind around it. Kevin, what was your
I back in 1963 went along to one of these crazy Hampstead Heath Swimming Club, which do Christmas morning swims. And at the age of 14, I think it was then, I started cold water swimming, and you may or may not know that 1963 was the year of the big freeze, and it was thick ice, and they used to put a rowing boat in the on the pond. So that when they moved the rowing boat, there was a little bit of a hole that they could make in the ice. And I started that in 1963, and I continued that, and still do to a certain extent. So sort of maybe once a week, twice a week, just a dip. I don't pretend that it's training, going in them really cold water. Once it gets below sort of 8, and then certainly once it gets below 5, I would just sort of have a dip, and I think that psychologically that helps with acclimatization, because if you go down with it, when you start coming up with it, the temperature starts coming up. If you've been in 5, when you go in 8, it's tropical.
Yeah.
When you go in 10, that's super tropical. As far as the mind is concerned, the brain is concerned. In fact, I was in the sea back about last weekend, I think it was, and it was 8 Celsius. But I only did 5 minutes. But I've kept it going.
Yeah, there's definitely good benefits from it. Matt, when you were growing up, having a father like Kevin, what was that like? Yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of strain in terms of, him always swimming the channel, or did it turn you off open water swimming, or did you? Yeah.
So my mum's a swimmer as well. My mum was a sprint swimmer.
Oh.
So I was more drawn to sprint swimming. And the question that's always followed me my whole life is have you swum the channel? And the second question was always, when you're going to swim it. So that's followed me my whole life. But I didn't start swimming till I was 5, and I was scared of the water, and there was all sorts of issues with that. And then I started sprint swimming, and I did okay. And I swam at nationals and things. Again, as I said before, I was never a distance swimmer at all, and would do everything I could to avoid it. But when I was 18, and I finished my A levels, and I was like, what should I do? And I got convinced to go for a training swim. I remember it was kind of like April, May, and it was about 16 degrees in a pool outdoors. I thought I was going to die afterwards. And then I got convinced to do a 2,000 meter cross Lake Windermere race when I was 18, which I won. And then I did that again the following year. And I did a couple of little sort of 3-mile swims, didn't do much. I actually did Lake Windermere with Dad in 2006.
Oh, brilliant.
Where we raced up Lake Windermere. I won.
Yes.
And yeah, and that was the last long swim I did, actually, for a long time, until 2020.
And what was your inspiration to do it? Was it that you were eventually going to do it, or like what was the trigger?
So I took some. I spent many years working on my business and sort of not putting myself first, really. And back in 2019, I decided to move some things around and start doing a little bit more training, and that mostly included going for a 2-hour swim every Wednesday night. And at the end of the summer, I went down to Dover because Dad lives down there, and I did a couple of laps around the harbour while I was down there. And I thought, and it was the channel swimmers were down there, and I thought, you know what, mate, if I'm ever going to do it, I need to do it now.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to him and said, let's look at it. And so we actually booked for 2022, and that was obviously back in 2019, and then COVID came along. As Dad said, spoke to the pilot and knew there was a spot available, and I had 2 months to train and get ready to go. And I did my training swim was the qualifying swim, and that was 2 months to the day from the day that I actually swam the channel. So it was quite a big, quick ramp up. I wouldn't recommend it to go from nothing to 6 hours.
You showed us possible.
Yeah, and obviously off the back of that, then sort of going into the North Channel the following year. I'm not sure I kind of had a particular plan behind it, or I felt a bit guilty because I felt like it wasn't a burning desire that I'd had all my life. But I quite enjoyed the challenge when I did set my mind to it.
Yeah. Kevin?
My perspective on this is that Matt wanted to do something different. And what he hasn't told you, he went into triathlons and did quite well at triathlons. But then in the London triathlon, he had a bad accident on his bike, and has never really done a huge amount in triathlons since. So he did try. He tried to go take a different path to me, but ended up back
The same road. Huh?
Well, it's definitely in the blood anyway. So Kevin, obviously as a father, you'd be meant to be proud. Well, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'm sure you're meant
Yes,
to
of course.
your son. So tell me what, watching Kevin's journey both on the English and North Channel, what was your thoughts, and what was, did you have to bite your tongue in terms of training, or things like that? There, just what went through your head?
Well, what goes first of all, I should say that Matt would never take training from me, coaching from me. They talk about not teaching your kids to drive, but it's worse. I try to offer advice occasionally, but he usually argues that it's wrong. So he very much, to be honest, he's gone his own way and done his own training. And in fact, my wife is the one who goes more on the boat with him and with his when it comes down to Dover to help him with his training. As I say, I think it's rather a case of he's done this sports science degree. He knows the academic side of it far better than I do, and I try and offer advice, but sometimes I don't know whether it gets through or not.
All ears, huh? And hello to Jane. You'll be listening to Jane. Kevin, you touched earlier on your Scottish start, which in the history of the North Channel is the lesser side, but obviously the everything's possible both ways. Tell us a little bit about that adventure.
Yes, this was in 1987, I think it was, and it was actually an attempt to do a two-way, and I came to the conclusion if I was a two-way might be easier if we went the hard way first, as it were, because it's far more. I'm not sure whether that's the right terminology, the hard way. But certainly Ireland and Scotland has been done far more times, and therefore it's far more practiced with what to do and where to go. So I tried Scotland to Ireland, and it went wrong in the middle. I didn't go anywhere for about 6 hours, and then I ended up way to the north of Belfast Lough.
Yeah, it was 17 hours.
Yeah,
a long haul.
And I'd been really badly stung by at that stage, And at 17 hours, obviously, it was. I didn't think it was on to turn round. In actual fact, I had to spend a night in hospital because of the stings.
It actually took 33 years for it to be successful. Is that right? 23 years for someone actually to do the two-way.
Yes. Yeah.
With a lot of people attempting it. Not a lot, but maybe another 4 people attempted it.
Attempting.
One of my sort of most proudest things, I suppose, is the way to do it, is that my first North Channel swim. I think if you look, you'll see that although Alison Streeter beat my time, as far as the male record was concerned, it stood for about 43 years. That was, I think, my best ever swim, to be honest. That first North Channel swim. The person who you're talking about, who eventually did the two-way, was Sarah Thomas, who is phenomenal.
And it was on the back of Sarah's success in the English Channel and the 4-way crossing and all of her other achievements. And you were on the boat. You know every step of that 4-way success.
I was the observer on her 4-way swim, 54 hours.
Yeah.
The untold story of that is I held at that stage the record for the longest time in an English Channel swim, 52.5 hours. So I was actually on the boat as the observer when she beat that.
And kudos to Caroline Block for her attempts at the 2-way North Channel, subsequently then with Sarah Thomas taking it.
Matt, go back to your swim, not to compare the English Channel and the North Channel, but in terms of the North Channel, describe to us how the day went and what parts were difficult, or did it all just go swimmingly?
Well, it went pretty swimmingly. I think the hardest thing for me was probably that I did most of my training down on the south coast of England. So by the time I was training down in August, it was 17, 18 degrees on the south coast, and coming up to my first swim with the Chunky Dunkers in Donaghadee was chilly, to say the least. There was a definite change in temperature, and I remember jumping in at the beginning of the swim thinking, Jesus, this is cold. But actually, once you get moving, it was fine. It was about 13, 14 degrees, I think, the day I swam. I think the biggest difference, obviously, was within pushing off the rocks at what's the
Robbie's Point.
Robbie's Point, yeah. About 10 seconds after I started, there was a jellyfish under me, and I thought, okay, this is. I got stung back. I got stung in the English Channel right at the very end. But seeing a jellyfish right in the first few seconds, I thought, okay, I'm in for it today. But I was lucky that I dodged them for about 4 hours before I picked up a few stings. And on the whole, I didn't respond badly to those, so they were fine. And then I guess in the last couple of hours, maybe I started to feel a little bit cold. But I think if you're swimming for 12 hours, I think it's fair to get a little bit cold towards the end.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have any sort of moments where your mind was sort of playing at you, and did you have any tricks around that?
Not really. So with my sports science degree, I actually did nutrition and sports science, sports psychology.
Yeah.
So those were my 2 subjects that I specialized in. And I think I'm quite stoic, and I just got on with it. And I think the feeding every 40 minutes is really good for me because it breaks the swim up. Obviously, you don't keep track of the time, but you can keep track of your feeds, and you can sort of know roughly where you are. I think one of the biggest differences is you can see Scotland right from the very beginning, and it's just the visibility is so clear. It felt like, and I remember looking up about 10 hours going, you can't be serious, this is still 3 hours away, because it felt literally like it was about 100 meters away. But yeah, I think, and I had a support swimmer come in at 6 hours, and that was quite good, although it was quite hard work swimming with someone who was fresh at 6 hours. And then she came back in for the last hour, which was nice. And I remember thinking when I saw her getting ready to come in, I realised that I had an hour left because I hadn't asked her to come back in. So I knew that that was an hour left.
Yeah.
I suppose that's something that we actually haven't touched on as support swimmers with any other swimmers so far. Would you recommend them, or?
I don't know.
Yeah,
my answer to that is no. Personally, this is very much a personal thing. I know lots and lots of swimmers who swear by having a support swimmer come in. It cheers them up, makes them, gives them a bit of a boost. If I get a support swimmer in, it's usually somebody I know how fast they are. And when I see them swimming with one arm and one leg and overtaking me, I know just how slow I've got, which tends to have the opposite effect. It sort of demoralizes me. So I prefer not to have a support swimmer in the water with me. Just one thing that you mentioned about being stung. I called down to Matt about halfway across. Are you being stung? And he said, yes, I'm being tickled.
Oh, I like
It didn't seem to affect. You were very lucky, I think, Matt.
I also wanted to reframe it in my mind. I didn't want to dwell on it, and so I thought the more I make fun of it, the more I treat it as something that's not very uncomfortable. That I could just take myself into a better place, especially after, I got stung in the English Channel twice, and I said to Dad, so I got stung in the English Channel twice. What am I looking at for the North Channel? And he warned me that it'd be 40 to 50 stings. So after I picked up my first 2 or 3, I was like, yeah, I can handle this. I'm not sure I want another 40 or 50 though.
You just reversed it in your mind, and you created positive out of it.
Yeah, I think I made a joke.
The heat, let the jellyfish give you heat, so say thank you to them rather than.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said they tickled, and I think I suggested it got a little bit itchy all of a sudden. But I tried to avoid any words of any discomfort and anything that sort of suggested I was in pain, because I thought as soon as I start accepting that, then it becomes a reality in my own mind. And then if everybody on the boat starts getting worried about you, then it's just it's a downhill spiral. So I'm just like, let's just not deal with those things until after the swim.
Did you take any antihistamines or prior to swim? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I started. So I suffer a little bit of hay fever, so I knew what antihistamines work quite well for me, and I just took those for about a week and a half before, every day.
Back in your days, Kevin, antihistamines maybe weren't even.
Well, yeah, I didn't take them before. I did tend to take them after. On all 3 of my swims, I was sort of semi-sedated after the swim because of the effect of the jellyfish, because of the itching in the bloodstream.
Yes.
Which I couldn't stand. That first swim I did, I was badly stung for all the way across. There had been a big storm just beforehand, and then it had calmed right down. But that big storm had brought lots and lots of jellyfish from all over the place into the North Channel. So I was sort of quite badly stung. And as I say, I was semi-sedated with just sleeping pills, really. Afterwards, I woke up 12 hours later and it was gone. The worst one, as I mentioned before, was the islands of Scotland, where I got badly stung, and I did have quite a bad reaction because of the number of stings I had, and I ended up in hospital for overnight. But as again, you wake up 12 hours later, and it's gone.
Oh, the badness is gone. Was that on the Scottish side?
It was all the way across. What, the stings? It was all the way across.
Where you went to hospital in?
Oh no, it was in Northern Ireland.
Oh, okay. One of the things I would say about then and now was the passage time once the swim finishes, and something about the progress of time and the invention of more modern boating and craft on the water. So in terms of taxi time back to Ireland, Kevin? We kind of know yours about 90 minutes with our boats currently, but what about yours, Kevin?
No, it would be 2.5, 3 hours coming back. Was with a guy. The boat was owned by a guy called Eddie Laird in Bangor.
Yes.
and Captain Long was the pilot. But
Oh
no,
yes, Laird's boat's Bangor. Yes, that's
yeah.
um,
Are they still there? I think they may be, but I don't. I think Eddie Laird may have passed on by now.
not a familiar name.
Kevin, we probably won't see you back in the Irish Sea or the North Channel swimming, but hopefully in the next couple of years we'll see you back, hopefully crewing for someone. I'm not sure if that is the case or not, but hopefully we will. Be great to have you on any of the boats.
Was there not a plan for the oldest team to swim the North Channel?
I think there was it back.
You're putting ideas into my head.
Well, we did discuss it.
Yeah. Oh. No, I will be seeing my old farts team at the CS&PF dinner, and I will put it to them that maybe that might be that. Yeah, I'd thought of that. I must confess, I'm a little wary of relays in the North Channel because I think that where the effect of the stings is worse is when you get out and start getting warm, because that's when the itching starts in the bloodstream.
Matt, did you get stung during your relay? You came back and did a relay.
Yeah,
Any vouch for that?
I got stung on that first stint on the wrists, but it was I didn't react badly. It was just a bit annoying and a bit itchy, and it flared up as Dad said. This when I got back out after my second swim, it was itchy again, but I got stung very lightly.
There you go, Kevin. No excuses now.
If we come to the North Channel, one of my old farts team is 81 years old.
Well, never too young.
Well, I insist it has to be as rough as the relay I did, Jacqueline.
Oh, Matt, come on! Look at the team you had. That was like easy water. You know, you had a challenging day, and congratulations, a great team.
After we finish this, I will be on saying somebody's put into my mind an idea.
Well, we maybe had it was a brief conversation, but definitely a thorough conversation with Steve Bernard as well. So
oh, do you?
Right. Yeah, there's some seeds there for food for thought. Huh?
Yeah. You've got a good coach in Matt there to get you back into shape.
Yeah. Matt, you have your own plans. What's next?
Next, I've got a 3-lake swim this year booked, and a couple of other things in the pipeline, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, hopefully with these videos that or these interviews, it'll share the knowledge that, you know, with other swimmers, and maybe have them think about the North Channel to give it a go.
You mentioned will I be back? As you probably know, I now coach swimmers, and it gives me a huge sense of achievement when they succeed.
Yeah.
And again, as you know, I encouraged some of them to actually come and do the North Channel.
Yeah.
So you will find me back with in a coaching capacity with some of the swimmers that we take.
Yeah. You also do the King's swim camp, which opens doors for a lot of people, and basically gives them access to all the knowledge that you've had over the years, both in the English Channel and throughout the world and the North Channel. Like that's invaluable for people to gain that knowledge from the horse's mouth type of thing.
Yeah, the King Swimmers swim camps in Menorca and in Dover.
Yeah.
Yes, the way we always used to do it in years gone by is we came up slowly through the British Long Distance Swimming Association and the Irish Long Distance Swimming Association, doing races which started off at 2 miles, then went to 3 miles, then 5 miles, then 6 miles, then 10 miles. And we came up slowly over a number of years. Nowadays, it's there isn't that. It's I want to do it, and things like the English Channel and the North Channel, instead of being the pinnacle, are the first swim that people want to do, and therefore they haven't got the knowledge, the experience, and swim camps like yours and ours and others fill that gap.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when there's cold water involved. It's a good learning curve for everyone.
And the other opportunities that are there, and your work with getting the original Triple Crown, the Bristol Channel, the North Channel, and the English Channel back on the cards, that has inspired a lot.
I never knew about that till you invented it.
There you go.
Always room for new inventions. Look at what it has created. It has inspired other people now to say, you know, okay, well, what's next? North Channel, box ticked, maybe, you know, and either some will look at the North Channel as less challenging than the Bristol Channel, or vice versa, or the English Channel. So yeah, it's good for people to have another goal.
In 2025, it will be how many years since that will be 55 years.
Yes.
I think that's the time for a relay.
Okay, well then we'll mark the card.
No problem. We're both ready for you.
Very welcome. That'd be a great year, huh?
Yeah. We're asking all the swimmers that we interview, with the knowledge you have now, before you started your North Channel journey, what would be the one piece of advice you would have given your younger self? We'll put that to Matt first.
I'd probably do some winter training, and just to get some speed work and fitness in before, you know, trying to train in 3 or 4 months is quite tough, I think, for both swims. And the North Channel, I think, was a much better swim for me because I trained a little bit more. I had a little bit more prep. It's a tough swim to do on 3 months training.
It just shows you the level of fitness that you were already at, you know, to top it up with 3 months training is pretty incredible. Yeah. Kevin, one piece of advice you would have given your 21-year-old self way back then?
Put one arm in front of the other. What's going to stop you?
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to stop you taking one more stroke is what in your head, to be honest. In actual fact, I don't think I've changed my views. Maybe I'm sort of stuck in my ways a bit, but that was my view then, and it is still now. And also to accept that you're going way beyond normal limits, and it's not physically, it's not a sort of physical thing. It's more psychological. It's how much can you push yourself?
I agree with that.
I think the other thing I'd have done was be 20 years younger.
Well, I did try. I did try and encourage you, and in those days, incidentally, he mentioned one of his first swims was 2 kilometers across Lake Windermere. When he finished, I was rowing the boat, and when he finished, I was a physical wreck, and he was quite happy because I couldn't keep up with him.
No, you flying machine.
Oh yeah,
there's very few beasts. I don't want to use beasts, but you're a big lump of a man, Matt. You know, you and Nicholas Murch,
yes,
are similar build. You know, and it's 40 strokes per minute is you're moving at that. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope the chat has inspired someone or will inspire someone. Yeah, Kevin, swimmer number 2 of the North Channel, and Matt, swimmer number 90 of the North Channel. Congratulations, and thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Talk soon.
Thank you both.
Yes.
I will speak to you about relays in due course.
Good. We'll have a boat ready for you. It's no problem.
Right.